Hey everyone, I'm Jay.
And I'm Sean.
And we haven't watched a movie today. Instead, we are talking about Chadwick Boseman.
Yes.
This one is still hurting.
Of course it is.
Surprisingly, for not having known the man. And yet, it is, I suppose, in some ways a tribute to his legacy and what he meant to us culturally, that we all feel a little bit sad hearing about his death. In part because he is your age, Sean. In fact, he is 1 week older than you.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. He's 43 years old.
Yeah, that hurts.
It does. And it was totally unexpected to everyone except probably his very closest friends. But most people that worked with him didn't know. Mm-hmm. Which is crazy too.
Yeah, but I think, especially in Hollywood, you don't really, you think if people know you're sick, then they're not going to talk about you for roles.
Yeah.
But he was a private guy generally, and he kept it to himself. That's his choice. And obviously, it was okay for people to talk about it when he died. I think he knew he was going to because he married his longtime love shortly before he passed. So I think he must have known he was toward the end. But it is a very hard thing to lose somebody so young. Somebody in such a pivotal role. Somebody who was just, he has been acting for a while, but just coming into his own.
Yep.
With so much promise. And to die of colon cancer, the disease my 80, almost 9-year-old grandfather has been living with for years. It's tough.
Yes, it is.
I hope that this is going to lead to more diagnoses when men can realize that, this stuff can happen to you even in a relative young age. So get yourself checked. He fought for 4 years. This is a long time. Pretty much all of his T'Challa years. All of his MCU years.
That's right.
He's been fighting his private battle, which is crazy to think of. But he has left us with a lot to think about and a lot to appreciate. He has actually played some very important figures to the African American community. Never mind the Black Panther stuff.
Yeah.
He played Jackie Robinson in 42.
Yes,
I know you saw that one.
I did. That
was an early review for you.
Yes, it was. That's right.
Mm-hmm. He played James Brown in Get On Up and Thurgood Marshall in Marshall. Recently, he was Stormin' Norman in Da 5 Bloods.
Yes, that's right.
But, of course, he's going to be remembered as our king for his role in the Black Panther.
Of course he is. That was one of the iconic Marvel MCU characters.
Yes. One that surprised everyone at how popular it was. It was one of the first Marvel characters whose rights reverted back to Marvel. So they were allowed to make the Black Panther movie, but they didn't make it this whole time. Wesley Snipes wanted to make it. Back in the 90s, he wanted to make it with director John Singleton.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Wouldn't that have been something?
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad it didn't happen because I loved this version so much. And of course, Wesley Snipes eventually played Blade instead. So it was okay for them. And I'm glad it waited for this time, this director, this star, because those things came together in a kind of spectacular way.
Yeah, they did.
But it seems Chadwick Boseman might have been the only one to see that coming. Because I know Ryan Coogler said on the set of that movie, he was not feeling great. He was not feeling confident. It was not his first movie, but it was certainly his first big budget, blockbuster, $200 million budget movie for Disney,
and it's
for
all
Marvel.
On screen.
He didn't know what he was doing. He did, of course, but he didn't feel like he did. And every day, Chadwick Boseman would just say, think of the impact it's going to have. Think who we're doing it for. And, as the director, there's a lot of little stuff every day that adds up and can really gnaw at you. But Chadwick Boseman was looking at the big picture of this thing. And so he knew what a crazy impact that this kind of thing could have. And I still think he probably didn't realize what an enormous impact it would have.
I don't think you could have predicted the amazing way that this would come out and just stand out above everything else.
Well, that is the thing. I mean, it is the top grossing film in history written by and starring African Americans. The top grossing film by a black director. It is still, to this day, the 11th highest grossing movie, period.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
And the highest Marvel one that's not an Avengers one.
That's right.
So people really spoke up about this character. There was something about this character. And in the way he was brought to the screen.
Yeah, I think that's really the cool part. Black Panther is a top tier character in the comics, but this was not something that could have been predicted out of who's the most popular superhero. It's not Black Panther, but as you said, it all came together, and it was a great movie.
Yeah. And we talk about diversity on movie sets. And this movie is obviously a prime example of why that is so important. Because the truth about diversity is that it helps us all of us. I mean, that is scientifically proven. Diversity is good for all of us. And on a movie set that is directed by a white man, he will hire white men to work for him. But on a set where, whether it's a multimillionaire black director like Spike Lee or a first-time female director, if you are a minority director, you are much more likely to have a diverse crew. And that was definitely true for Black Panther. And people really were surprised because, I mean, Ryan Coogler, had his Fruitvale Station was a little indie movie, but had a big impact. Then he got to do Creed, which had, again, a really big impact, which people were not expecting, in part because the Rocky franchise had not been super strong in the past 20 years. And he and Michael B. Jordan breathed new life into it. And so for him to be able to parlay that success into helming this movie with that budget, and then he brought along not the normal Marvel people, and he said, no, we need Black Panther to stand out, to not be edited and lensed and scored by the same old people who do all of the Avenger movies. So he brought in his own people. Ruthie Carter did the costumes. Rachel Morrison was the cinematographer. Hannah Beachler was the production designer. She became the first black person ever to be nominated in production design, and she won. And so did Ruth Carter for the costumes. It was the first superhero movie to be nominated for Best Picture. The first. It was only the second one to be nominated for score. Sean, would you know who the other one was?
Most superhero movie nominated for score? Superman, the original Superman.
That is right. But it's the first one to win. And it's the second one to be nominated for production design. Do you know what the first one was there?
No, I don't.
Batman.
Okay.
Batman. Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. So obviously, this is the first film in the MCU to get an Oscar nomination, and it got 0. So that's huge.
It is.
Obviously, that's a big deal. This movie ended up grossing over $1 billion. Which means that Black Panther is not just a superhero, he's a cultural hero. He is someone that black kids really all over the world can hold up as their own. And I liked how Ryan Coogler did bring in both. Wakanda is a fictional country, but it is set in the very real continent of Africa. And they make sure to make it feel like it is a modern day African country, and it is surrounded by the realities of all of the other African countries.
Yeah, that's right.
But they also visit the United States. And I think that was really key in grounding it and making it feel more globally relevant.
Yeah, I mean, they do go all over the world. Mm-hmm. They go to Asia. Mm-hmm. That's a globe-trotting movie.
That's right. Well, I think when we first meet them, they're speaking at the UN, aren't they?
Yes, that's right.
In a previous movie, of course. Him and his father.
That's right.
So obviously, it is meant to be a global thing. And this movie, it's a superhero movie. It's about not just one guy. But it really reflects on power. What do powerful people owe those who are in need? And it's obviously very interesting to have the powerful people be a black country, Wakanda, and what do they owe the countries that neighbor them? But of course we can take that and transplant it into modern day America and ask the same question.
Yeah.
We know what Wakanda ended up deciding. And wouldn't it be nice if America could do the same? And what is the value of strength if you're not using it to help other people? So these are the, obviously questions like that and themes like that elevate the material, and it makes it more than just a comic book movie. This is a movie for the ages, and that's why a hero like T'Challa and Black Panther can resonate with everyone, because those are lofty and beautiful goals and very well expressed in this movie.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, they are.
Thank you, Sean. So Chadwick Boseman actually won Best Superhero at the 2018 MTV Awards.
Oh,
I know. That was definitely on his list of, yeah. But the award is not on his mantle, and it's not because he actually passed that award on to someone else at the award ceremony. He passed it on to James Shaw Jr. Sean, I don't suppose you remember that name.
I don't.
He was known at the time as the Waffle House hero. Somebody stepped into a Waffle House with a gun and was shooting the place up. And this guy, James Shaw Jr., tackled him, subdued him, and although 4 people were already shot...
Saved a lot of others.
Absolutely. So, Chadwick Boseman passed that on to someone he thought was a real world hero. Yeah. Which again is a nice way of honoring and what that statuette really means. What is a hero? And what good is power if you're not helping someone else? I mean, it seems like he was actually the embodiment of those things.
Yes, it
does. It meant
does.
something to him, and that's
kind of seem like
nice
there's a lot
to see.
Of crossover between the character and the real guy.
So there was one really pivotal line in the movie. So it's in the end when Killmonger is wounded and he is dying, and the two are sitting together. And T'Challa says to him, "I can try to heal you." And Killmonger says, "Why? So you can lock me up? Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped ships because they knew death was better than bondage." So Coogler and Cole, the screenwriters, put that in, and they knew it was going to get cut. This is a Marvel superhero movie. Nobody wants to get all political. But Kevin Feige, to his credit, knew a goddamn powerful line when he read it. And he said, no, not only are we not cutting that, we need to wrap the movie around that line. And so I think that's really how they hit us all so hard with the themes of this movie, because it's a fictional superhero in a fictional country, and yet the story feels very modern and very relevant. And it's very hard to do that. It's very hard to come from a political, touchy place and speak those truths. You know, it does make us feel differently about the supposed villain of this film.
Yes, it does.
And maybe who the real villains are.
Yeah.
So, you know, those final sentences really turn things around. And they leave you walk out really feeling like there's a lot of questions that we maybe should be asking ourselves.
Yes. Yes, there are.
So, they were reluctant, of course, to bring Black Panther out because Black Panther has, of course, always been associated with the Black Panther Party.
Right.
But actually, the comic book Black Panther predates the political party. Just by a couple of months. It was created in July 1966. And this is actually not its first appearance in film.
Oh.
It made its first appearance on film like 30 years ago.
It did?
It did. It was in a little movie called Do the Right Thing.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the characters, they were talking about boycotting Sal's Pizzeria. And one of the characters holds up a Black Panther comic book and says, if Black Panther eats pizza, we eat pizza. And it just shows you how, like, that's 30 years ago, and it was already in culture for almost 30 years at that point. But just how representation matters, how just something like that, he already felt like their hero.
Yeah, that's true.
Even then. And Spike Lee, of course, was a big fan of Black Panther. He loved seeing it. He was cast Chadwick Boseman in Da 5 Bloods.
Right.
So yeah, he was loving Black Panther from way back. I think a lot of people, Chadwick Boseman actually got to deliver a commencement speech. He delivered it at his alma mater, Howard University. And, you know, it was an incredible, moving speech, which I'm sure everyone is now poring over with the hindsight that we now know. And did he know how sick he was? Did he know that this was going to be his legacy, part of his goodbye? So he attended Howard University. He has a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in directing. He only took up acting because he knew it would help him as a director. He wrote all the time. While he was at Howard University, one of his professors was Felicia Rashad.
Oh, cool.
And she thought he was very talented. I know, weird.
Yeah.
He was selected to go to the British American Dramatic Academy at Oxford. And so Felicia Rashad really wanted him to go. So she called her friend Denzel Washington, and it was Denzel Washington who paid his tuition to Oxford. So of course, Chadwick Boseman has always told people that without Denzel Washington, there is no Chadwick Boseman. And he meant that, of course, because Denzel did open up a lot of leading man roles for African Americans.
Yeah, he did. He did.
The go-to guy. And he had that presence to make people believe he was anyone.
Yeah.
He played good guys and bad guys, and he's been astonishing for many, many years. So, of course, people knew that anyone who's come since has stood on the shoulders of people like Sidney Poitier, Denzel Washington, Will Smith, and now suddenly there's a few more. But for a long time, it was really like one guy at a time.
One at a time, yeah.
But in Boseman's case, he really did mean Denzel Washington literally sponsored him. That's kind of incredible.
Yes, it is.
To know that, and Felicia Rashad, of course, who was Creed's mom. And, you know, a lot of people know that Michael B. Jordan got his start in acting on a soap opera called All My Children. But you may not know that Chadwick Boseman got the very same start.
Oh.
Not just as a character in All My Children, but as the same character.
Oh,
he
that's
played
funny.
that same character first, and then Michael B. Jordan got the role after, because Chadwick Boseman left the set for challenging some of the racial stereotypes of the character. But they played the exact same guy.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, if you are any kind of minority in Hollywood, it is a very small world.
Yeah, it is.
This movie is really a culmination of so much hard work from the people who came before them to now, and Chadwick Boseman knew that he was really the physical representation of that. And that's a lot of pressure. It is a lot of pressure for people of color, for minorities to be the first this or that, because you feel like you have to do it for your group, for this whole race or whatever it is. And that's not fair. Nobody should have to put that on their shoulders.
But I think that pressure is real.
Yes.
And there's a reason underlying it. If Black Panther had not done well at the box office, it would be because you can't have a black superhero. No one's interested in seeing it.
That's right.
Which is obviously, we don't say that about white superheroes.
No.
If a white superhero movie crashes and burns, they'll just make it in 3 more years with the same character.
That's right. We'll just keep rebooting it for more white guys to play the same role. That's absolutely right. And I think he tapped that when he played Jackie Robinson, who, as you know, had to be the image of perfection.
Yeah, that's
just because he was the only one and everyone was watching him.
But not only did he have to be perfect, he had a target on his back where people were trying to get under his skin and make him mad so that he would be the first and the last. That's because black people aren't capable of playing professional sports, which is also obviously garbage.
Yeah, well, now we know the real reason why white people were trying to shut them out.
Yeah.
They did not want the competition.
No, they didn't.
They knew they would get shut out.
Legendary figures from the 1930s and 1940s that were not. Jackie Robinson paved the way, but you know, these people were before him that just never got to play in the major leagues, even though they could have dominated. So when you think of the long line of black people who had to bear the burden of being first, Barack Obama may come to mind. Yeah.
He and his wife Michelle issued this statement: to be young, gifted, and black, to use that power to give them heroes to look up to do all while in pain. What a use of his years. Chadwick Boseman's last tweet, which was just about 2 weeks before he died, was congratulating Kamala Harris on her nomination to VP. So clearly there is intention there. There, you know, is hopefully things continuing to open up. And, you know, what a time to be part of in all of this. But it is very sad to lose him. And I think that's why people are asking about what happens to the Black Panther franchise now.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's a little crass to talk about movies and work. And
it's not really though,
death,
because
but
he was the Black Panther. This is something that we all were looking forward to, is Black Panther 2.
That's right.
And now, yeah, what do you do?
What do you do? I know Ryan Coogler issued several tweets that were sounding very dispirited, because obviously the sequel was well into development. Coogler has spent the last year writing for Chadwick Boseman. And Marvel has said that they will not recast the role.
I think that's right. Yeah, I mean, that is something that is really hard. It's hard to lose Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
I think it would be a reminder of that loss if someone else is playing him.
Okay.
I think you have to find another way. And hopefully there still is a way to make that movie.
Well, that's what I think.
it
I
is.
think Black Panther, the character, the king, is too important culturally to lose.
Yeah.
But I think there may be precedent in the comics for his sister Shuri to take over the role.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like a
But I
good solution.
think going forward that they should acknowledge the death.
Yeah.
They should be acknowledging who we're missing. We've seen that in a few other movies. We saw that in The Fast and Furious.
Yeah, we did. To great effect. I think that is, of all of those movies, that one stands out for that reason.
Yeah.
Because it is a tribute to Paul Walker.
Yes. And I thought it was well handled also in the Star Trek franchise when Leonard Nimoy died.
Yeah.
And they had a little goodbye, so the characters died, and while we're doing that, we can also acknowledge that the person has died.
Yeah.
But then also find a path forward. And you're right, I think his loss is really huge to the franchise.
Yeah, it is.
But I hope.
To the MCU.
Yes, absolutely.
He was one of the biggest characters in those movies.
Yes.
And he was
certainly, he's the big guy left.
Yeah.
In terms of box office, he's the big guns.
Yeah.
And that whatever arm of this we're in now, whatever chapter we're in, Black Panther was the way forward.
Yeah.
And I hope it still is, one way or another.
Yeah. Me too.
All right. Well, obviously the world is still reeling, missing him. It's been a rough year.
Yes, it has.
It's been a rough year. And so we are thinking of his friends and family, and I know everyone is struggling to say goodbye in a time when funerals are not really happening in their traditional sense. So I think everyone is just thinking of them in their own way, and certainly watching Black Panther will always be an easy and wonderful way to remember him.
Yeah, and he's going to be missed.
Yes, he will.
He had a lot ahead of him.
Absolutely.
Well, he should have.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.
Bye.